on CQ SOTA, so I give them contacts. But mostly I'm doing what I call opportunistic HF adventure travel. So that means that, you know, I want to be able to operate from anywhere and not take a lot of time to do it. So what I just wrap the counterpoise wire around the radio.
13 foot?
That's 13 feet. And then, because there's always the problem with the loose end on the wire, when I designed these clips for the whip, they each have a little serrated tooth gap there, so you can actually just like stick the counterpoise wire into one of these serrations so it's dressed, and when you put it in your pocket it won't come loose and unravel. Anyway, so all of my hiking adventures start with this radio in my back pocket, and I pretty much then just forget that it's there, just like my cell phone, my keys, whatever. It's just part of my, you know, my outfit at that point.
Can you guys hear down there? Okay.
Yeah. So that's really what I wanted. I wanted a radio that actually fits in my pocket, and I wanted it to be half the size and half the weight of the KX2, because I don't know if anybody else has tried using the KX2 handheld, but I do that a lot, and even the 22 ounces or so that the KX2 weighs with the battery and the whip, that starts to, you know, to wear out your wrist after a while. So it had to be half the weight of a KX2. So would somebody like to time me on my deployment here? So
like
usually what happens is, you know, like I'll, if I want to take a rest, or if I come to like a nice crest and I've got a clear shot to the east, or maybe I've got a parabolic rock reflector behind me, I'll just operate wherever I feel like I might hear signals. And the thing about this is it gets me on the air really fast, and my assistant here is gonna like...
You say go.
Okay, go. Yeah, the trick is to not get the counterpoise wire wrapped around your neck. On air.
20 seconds.
All right.
21 seconds.
Details, yeah. So, yeah, the trick is to not be doing it right in the middle of a lunch talk, right, where somebody's timing you. So anyway, the logbook tray, getting a better spot. So the logbook tray, you know, folds closed and snaps really securely. And the nice thing is that completely covers the controls, and it keeps your log sheets dry. And you can still, if you got power turned on, you can still use the keyer paddle, the AF gain control, the spotting, the monitor level, and all the VFO settings. You can still do all of that, even with the cover closed. So if you're already on the band you want to use, and you're using the internal logging function, then you can just like operate the whole time with the cover closed, and so that will keep the rain off if it happens to be raining. But I like paper logging, and so for me the biggest challenge of this thing was figuring out how I'm going to like create a paper log that will work for the SOTA guys, because I've seen so many of you with, you know, clipboards of your own design. You know, they're great, but I wanted to formalize that because it's such a cool idea, and I also wanted to just be part of the radio, so it fit in my pocket. So this thing unsnaps, and then it extends an extra 3/8 of an inch, just enough so you can actually hold this thing, get your fingers in there and hold it like an HT. I mean, VHF and UHF microwave guys, they've had HTs for decades. Why can't we have an HT?
Yeah.
Okay. So the last nice thing about the log tray is it actually has detent built in. So the last little thing you do is that, and this is all 3D printed. So these are little 3D printed cantilever detents, and that means that if you're in a sleeping bag, the log tray's not going to flop over.
Nice.
I have literally operated this thing lying down, and this is a mini pin. This is a standard size 3.9-inch mini pin. You can actually fit a space pin in here too if you take off the cap and the pin clip. Rob Capon made sure that a space pin would fit in this thing. He's like their biggest advocate, at least on this planet. But the hardest part of this log system was, I know how SOTA operators work, right? You're going to make 12 contacts, and then you got to change the log sheet, right? So basically, all you got to do is peel off the full sheet, and then there's little indentations in the plastic. You just tuck it in underneath the stack, and you move on. So you say, da-da, did-it, hold on a second, and then you change your log sheet, and you're back on the air. So, I mean, it seems obvious now, but it took me like 3 or 4 tries to figure out that this is the best way to do one-handed paper management.
Can you pull it out and then flip it over?
Yeah, you can flip it. You can pull a sheet out, flip it over. That's a good place to write notes. Yep.
What size are the sheets?
Yeah, it's not a standard size. No, but we have a PDF file on the KH1 website, so you can print your own log sheets and trim them out. If you buy the log tray add-on, then a stack of 10 log sheets comes with it, and that's about the right number to keep in there, because that maintains a little bit of friction with the top and bottom, but not so much that you can't slip a sheet in behind it. So 10 sheets is about enough for 120 contacts. But it also will log 32 kbytes of QSOs internally if you're using the keyer paddle. Every time you send a character, it decodes it, and it will stuff it into the double EEPROM. So, and then it has a real-time clock, so it will time and date stamp, and also frequency and mode stamp periodically as you're transmitting. And so if you then hook it up to KH1 utility on your computer, you can then dump the log to it.
Wow.
So for people who want to just like do total stream of consciousness contacts and then dump it later and figure out what your log is if you need to, then that's the way to do it. The keyer paddle was another neat trick. It's like, how do you make a keyer paddle this small that plugs into the same jack as somebody's external keyer paddle and keep it from rotating? So it has little nubs on there to keep the keyer paddle from rocking around. Speed up and down controls are really fast, and when you are, so you can see the keyer paddle is actually up above the knobs when you're actually using it, okay? But when you are transporting it, you basically just pull the keyer paddle out, flop it over, plug it in the other way. And now the keyer paddle is protected by the knobs, and it fits in your pocket better. So just another nice portability feature. The whip has a couple of pieces of transparent heat shrink tubing, and that's so that you get better retention force in the whip clips. The paddle, or the whip clips, and the log tray can be flipped over to the other side, so if you're left-handed, it works better. Antenna system, right? So everybody knows a 4-foot whip is not as efficient as a long wire antenna thrown in a tree, or any number of other larger or higher antennas. But as Rich Hynek, my co-designer who did the PC boards, as Rich told me, he took this thing out for months doing SOTA activations, and he said, it's actually kind of nice to have a little bit weaker signal because then the pileups aren't as big. And Steve, WG0AT, I handed him one. He didn't bring his goats to Santa Cruz. He brought his wife to Santa Cruz. It was their, I don't know, like 50th wedding anniversary or something like that. They actually got engaged in Santa Cruz.
Oh, wow.
So I met him down there, and I handed him one of these. And if you've never seen a guy who looks like a kid who's discovered candy for the first time, this is what Steve looked like. And ever since then, he's still doing it today. Ever since then, he's been operating in this completely new mode that he's told me about. It says where it's basically, he just carries around with him, and he gets on the air whenever he's got a few spare minutes.
Wow.
When they were at Santa Cruz, they were doing sightseeing, Steve's wife would duck into the bathroom, he'd get on the air for 2 minutes. So that is exactly what I had in mind for this product. Is I really wanted to completely lower the barriers to HF operation, because so many people think HF, oh my God, I've got to do what Wayne did. Get your K4 out, put an AX1 on it, and carry it with a 7 amp hour gel cell. No, that's not what you have to do. And you don't have to stay in your shack. Radio waves are everywhere, right? You guys know that. I'm preaching to the choir, but I really wanted to create kind of a new category that I'm calling diet soda. Go ahead.
You heard it here.
Yeah, you heard it here. So, to me, what diet soda is like ultralight. Entire station, 5 bands, 5 watts, CW, CW sideband cross mode, big honking battery. This thing has a 2.6 amp hour lithium ion battery. It only draws 50 milliamps and receives, so it's going to last forever. Like a dozen activations for you guys.
What battery is that?
2.6 amp hour lithium ion, the same battery that's in the KX2. Yeah, so it'll last forever. Really wide range auto tuner, considering what size it is. This is the world's smallest ATU, as far as I can tell. The only way to get it smaller would be to use mimic switches instead of relays, and those are like 40 bucks a piece, so not doing it yet. As soon as the mimics come down in price, I will do an antenna tuner that uses those instead of relays, and then the tuner will be half the size of what it is now. But in 2023, you still have to use relays. So wide range auto tuner. The whip loading coil is actually built in. That's why you don't see any base here. Like an AX1 or an AX2 use the same whip, but you've got an external base. But at 5 watts, a T44-6 core does an excellent job, and it's really high Q, fits inside here, and there's 2 windings on it, and this switch on the top selects either the 20-meter winding or the 15-17 winding, or it has a center off position. And what that's good for is, let's say you're using a BNC mounted antenna. So the BNC is always connected to the ATU, but the whip can be disconnected from the ATU just by putting the switch in the center off position. So, you eliminate the possibility of getting an RF burn accidentally off the whip. So that's pretty much all there is to it. It's like, it's a shoehorn job, but it's like